Our good friends here at Career Builder are sponsoring today's delicious lunch. And I want to invite a very good friend of mine and former colleague, Richard Carlson, up to introduce Nacho. And Richard, take it away, and look forward to hearing everything you have to say. Thank you, Nacho.
Thanks, Harris. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. My name is Richard Carlson, and I'm the Global Relationship Director between Career Builder and Olympus Corporation, along with all of its respective business lines and divisions worldwide. I partner directly with our enterprise clients to help them develop, execute, and manage their overall talent acquisition strategy. One of the companies I've had the privilege of working with over the last 3 years is Olympus. I was actually there last week meeting with my main contact, and before we started our meeting, I mentioned that I would be introducing the president of Olympus at an upcoming networking event, and that I would love to hear what it's like working with Mr. Abia. It didn't take more than 2 seconds for that colleague to start giving me some great insights. First thing she said is Nacho's incredibly dedicated to not only Olympus, but its employees. He brings tremendous focus to Olympus and entrenches himself into the business. Unlike others in his position, Nacho is not intimidating and a great person to talk to. I can attest to that from our introduction a few minutes ago. And his kids even go to the Olympus daycare, just like everyone else. One interesting story that the contact told me was that at the first meeting where Nacho was presenting himself, at the first meeting in their Center Valley offices, he started by showing a picture of friends and family and introducing who each of them were. And my client had never seen anything like that, she said. But it really humanized who Nacho was and who they'd be working for, and she really appreciated that. And just from my impression from talking to my client, what I got was that people could really relate to Nacho and they truly enjoyed working with him. So, as some of you may know, Olympus is a global technology company headquartered in Tokyo with business activities in the medical equipment, consumer products, and scientific and industrial fields. Olympus Corporation of the Americas, though, through its more than 5,000 employees, has the responsibility for representing Olympus interests across North and South America, including manufacturing and service, as well as sales and marketing activities through its various subsidiaries. Mr. Abia has been an employee for Olympus for over 14 years, serving in the U.S. and abroad, including Olympus European headquarters in Hamburg, as managing director for the imaging division for Europe, Middle East and Africa, and Barcelona, as CEO of the Olympus subsidiary in Iberia region. Prior to becoming president of Olympus Corporation of the Americas in July 2013, Mr. Abia was the president of Olympus Imaging America and served on the Olympus Imaging Corporation of Japan's board of directors since 2008. Mr. Abia holds dual master degrees in telecommunications engineering and business administration. Born in Spain, Mr. Abia is married with 2 children and currently lives in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Nacho Abia, President of Olympus Corporation of the Americas.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for your invitation to be with you today. It's my real pleasure to be here, and I will try to make the next 35 minutes a little bit not too boring for you, because I think what the most important thing is going to be the debate afterwards, and I'm happy to answer or comment on anything you like. My pleasure to be here. I'm glad that Richard spoke with the right individual in the company. I'm not sure if all of them would have said the same thing, but yeah, which is true is that I am a devoted Olympus employee for years, and I am a family man as well, and you will see this in my presentation today. So with further ado, let me go through the slides we have prepared for this, and in essence, my plan today is to talk to you a little bit about myself. I mean, if this can be interesting for someone, I think it's my life is not especially interesting, but at least I've been in many places in the world, and probably this is what makes a little bit exciting of my life. A little bit about Olympus. I think it's going to be. I mean, everybody knows Olympus, or most of the people knows Olympus for our camera business. I mean, that's what is giving our brand value. But in reality, this represents barely 10% of our business, and majority of our business is in the medtech industry. So we provide medical equipment for healthcare providers. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and finally, I think this is probably the part will be more interesting for you eventually. I mean, it's always interesting to talk about success stories, and there is always learning about that. But the way I want to talk to you today is talk to you about three stories of my personal stories that happened in my professional life that started like a big disaster and managed to end in something better, right? So, and through this, I definitely learned much more than in any other previous successful experience that was easy, I would say. So I will tell you a little bit about it, and after that, I mean, I'm happy to welcome any question or any comment from yourself. Okay, so a little bit about me. Born in Alicante, Spain. I'm a Spaniard. Alicante is a small town in the south of Spain. Very touristic place, very nice place, wonderful for vacation. But if there is a place in the world which I consider as a hometown, it's definitely Barcelona. I grew up there. It's a wonderful city. I was talking with one of your colleagues here, one of your members, about this. I mean, it's a while ago since I left Barcelona, but it still is my hometown. And somehow I feel that one day, maybe when I will be retired, I'll come back there. Still family there, my parents are there, and a lot of friends. So it's a wonderful place, and I always advertise for my city. So if you have not been there, you have to go. You will not be deceived. So my family, this is something I always do, right? So, and I did when I started in Olympus. And why I do this is simply because it is the most important part of my life. I mean, I can dedicate probably 13 to 16 hours to Olympus and less to my family, but I always want to remind everybody that, and to remind myself that if I am here, if I am on Earth, the real relevant part of my life is my family. And I don't have a big family, but definitely we're very much united. So let me introduce my parents and my sister, which live in Barcelona, my wife, and definitely my little treasures. These two, it's a 5 years old and 2 years old. They really is my daily happiness, right? So, and no matter, there is nothing better to come back after a business trip and receive the hugs of the kids, and it really would make me alive every day. So Max and Ian. Max was born in Barcelona. Ian was born here in the States already, but both of them are truly American. I mean, it's nice to see how they are growing. So what I like in life, family first of all, as I mentioned, be with friends. I mean, I think I've been living in many parts of the globe, and definitely everywhere I went, I left a lot of friends that I like to meet from time to time, and it's a nice kind of I mean, it's a nice way to remind where you have been when you know the people, and you meet from time to time all those people that represent something from you at a certain time of your life. So friends is a important part of my life. I like to read when I have time. I like to exercise when I have time, which is not very often. The only thing is regularly in my agenda, it's actually the Philadelphia Triathlon, which is a nice one in Fairmount Park. Actually is the only one that I'm doing by now, but still I try to do every year, and I think it's a great spot. And traveling. I mean, this is I've been blessed in my life with a job that allow me to combine my passion on traveling with my business trip. I mean, I really been for professional and for private reasons in many parts of the globe, and still I have many places to be. But I think really the traveling and talking with other people around the globe is the best way to develop yourself. I mean, to develop your understanding, to build your tolerance to others, to accept other cultures. So it's really a great pleasure to me, and not much at this point, at least for pleasure, but definitely something is always in my agenda. My education, I mean, Richard already mentioned, I have a master's degree in telecommunications engineering, but I feel bad for my parents that pay for a nice university, but actually my engineering career lasts for 24 hours. This was the time I spent in deciding for a marketing job, as my first job. So really, I don't remember much about it, but it still is in my CV. I discovered that the business was my passion, and I wanted to develop business all over the world. So I went to MBA, and in essence, I'm really a passionate believer about continuous education. So as much as I can, at least once a year, I try to go for 2 or 3 days to a business school where they make me a little bit more humble, right? So they remind you all what you don't know, and in essence, to be when you are only in your business, and you at the end you have a tendency to become endogamic and to think that your wall is the wall, and the wall is much bigger than this. So it's always a great exercise to spend a few days in a business school with people from other areas, and it's really nice, and I do it as much as I can. So my professional background. So after I left college, I worked for a couple of American companies actually, but it looked like I didn't like much, and because I lasted for just 2 or 3 years, and then in '95 I started working at Sony, which was, I would say, my first I think, a strong professional experience. I learned a lot. I learned to work with Japanese companies, and since then I've been with Japanese companies. So it's interesting experience to work for a Japanese company. It's not the same that to work for American company. The values, the culture, and the most important that someone has to learn working for a Japanese company is the concept of time. So when you talk about short term in a US company, you normally are talking about the next quarter, if you are lucky. And when you talk about short term in Japan, it's between 1 and 3 years, right? So, and this tells a lot in terms of how to develop strategies, how the implementation time. So it's a very interesting experience, I would say. And it looks like I like it, because since then I've been almost for 20 years now working for Japanese companies. So I started working at Sony in Spain after a few years in Madrid, in Spain, in Barcelona. I moved for 1 year to Amsterdam. This was my first international experience. It's a great city. It rains too much for my taste, but it's a great city. It's nice, very international, multicultural, and I have a lot of fun there. Right after that, I joined Olympus in 2001, and I started as the CEO. Well, actually, I started as the founder of the Iberian operation in Spain and Portugal, because before me was no company, so we had some business through some dealers, but my job was to put everything together, and it was a very small business at the time, really a small business. It was a great time, and I was, barely at that time 31 years old when I joined, and really the job was too big for me. It was very obvious. I managed to convince, obviously, my boss and to hire me, but I felt immediately that the job was too big. I came from a marketing role, and this was to manage an entire company. And I had to learn a lot, and I had a lot of fun, and I could find that way a lot of good people that helped me to develop. And actually, it was a very, very successful experience. Was as successful that in 2007, someone thought that would be a good idea to bring me to Hamburg, where Olympus has the European headquarters, and I was appointed as the managing director for the imaging division, and from Hamburg we were managing the entire EMEA territory, so Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and I will tell you later why I have to be very often in Middle East and Africa. In 2011, probably we did something good in Europe. In 2011 was a surprise to me, but the company say, what about America? I say, why not? Where in America? I say, Central Valley. Is this close to Silicon Valley, or is it? Say, not exactly, but you're gonna like it. All right. So I decided to move, and actually it's been great from a professional point of view, but it's even being greater from a personal point of view. My family is doing very well here, very well. My wife is happy, so I have a happy life. And my kids, as I mentioned, are truly American, and this is a great place to live. We live in Bethlehem, which is 50 miles from here north, and it's great time. And then 2 years after I came, the company offered me the position of president and CEO of the entire corporation. My first job here was as the president of the imaging division. So since July 2013, I'm in charge of the corporation. So, and to finish with me, I just quickly want to mention about what are the things I value in life. And I think this is not rocket science. Probably many of you share this. But this is very important for me. It's very fundamental because I try to be consistent in life. I try to always behave in a consistent manner. And this helps a lot when you have to take certain decisions or when you face certain situations. So I believe in transparency. I'm not a good politician. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but I definitely don't like that part of my job. I'm simple. I like simple things. I like things which are logic. I struggle with complicated things all the time. Ambition is good. Persistence is also good. Effort and accountability. There is no reward without effort before. Teamwork. Sense of humor, very important. I think we always have to keep a smile, and we always have to find fun, because otherwise this will not work, right? So in the long term. And all of this with a lot of respect of the people. Everywhere. People means employees, means customers, means stakeholders, means everybody. And no matter, I keep saying this when I speak with my employees, and I truly believe on this. No matter what you do, no matter what is your mission in your company, is as important as the CEO or as any other position. Everybody is contributing to the global goal. So those are my values and principles, and I try to live with them. Let me shift now to Olympus. So who we are. Let me start with our mother company in Japan, Olympus Corporation. So we are almost 100-year-old company. So I expect to be here by the first 100th anniversary of the company, which is going to be in 5 years from now. So the company was founded in Japan in 1999. We expanded to Europe and Americas and the rest of the world. The original name was Takachiho Seikashucho, and it's great that someone had the vision that maybe it's better to change the name, otherwise it's going to be difficult to be known worldwide. And interesting enough, Takachiho Seikashucho means in Japanese the mountain of the gods, and so again the founder of the company decided in 1921 that if they wanted to expand their business overseas, better to use something which is pronounceable. And then they created Olympus, which is the kind of Greek translation of the name. So our first product was a microscope. So all what we do has to do with images. And our first product was a microscope. Then we developed just later into photography. And in 1950, we invented the gastro camera, and this was the beginning of all the endoscopy therapies that we have right now. And then we entered in the medical field. So a little bit about the company. We are a 7 billion company, so we are in the probably 10, 11 position in healthcare medtech companies. Our market capitalization yesterday, and they said yesterday because this changed, was $14 billion. We are publicly traded in Tokyo. Our president and CEO, my dear boss, is Hiroyuki Sasa. Great man, about 36,000 employees. And probably the most important area for a company is that we have more than 15,000 patents, and we invest almost 10% of our revenues in R&D every year. That's massive. There is no company, at least no company that I know in the medtech field, that is spending 10% of the revenues. This is a lot. We are a technology company. I used to say that we are definitely best engineers than marketeers. Right? Our product is superior. Our go to the market not always that superior, but definitely we have great products and great technology. So what we do now, what are our businesses? We have multiple business, but in essence we can summarize this in 3 divisions. One is the medtech business, which represents, as I say before, worldwide 70% of our revenues. And in essence, what we do there is anything that has to do with something you can do in the human body without having to open it, right? So endoscopy. We introduce devices in the body through small holes, And by then, we can diagnose, we can proceed to a surgery, we can do many things in a minimally invasive way, which helps for the quick recovery and everything else. So this is the largest business we have, and this is the main driver for the company. At the end of the day, this is where the growth is, this is where the profit is, and that's where most of the people in the company is focused on. But we have also as well a life science and industrial division. So we keep doing microscopes. 100 years later, we keep doing microscopes, and it's a good business. And then we have this together with an industrial division providing non-destructive testing devices for variety of industries. And finally, we have our consumer imaging business, which is normally the reason why Olympus is known. It's a great business. I've been working for that business for years. It's very nice and very interesting. Changing and definitely a challenge as well. I think the mobile phone industry completely changed the battlefield in the camera business. But well, I think we're doing well. We have great products and we are managing well through these times. So, Olympus Corporation of America, it was established in 1968 in Lake Success in New York. I think 2006, the company took the decision to move to Pennsylvania in Center Valley. Since then, we are there. We are managing from Center Valley. We're managing the entire Americas, from Alaska to Patagonia. We have offices everywhere, and we employ about 5,000 people in the entire Americas. So what we do, it's definitely many things, but from a sales perspective, we are the responsible company to sell all Olympus products in the Americas, in North and South America. And we differentiate between US and Canada group and then Latin America, mostly because of the maturity of the market. I think it's completely different. It requires completely different setup for the companies to go to these markets. Is not much what we can share between the mature markets and the emerging markets, I would say. So we manage Latin America from Miami. We have an office there to give support to the entire Latin America and our subsidiaries there. And from US and Canada are managed mostly from Center Valley managed US, and from Toronto we have our Canadian operation. And then we have our manufacturing group. We have a relevant manufacturing here for the entire world. We have 6 big factories and many others smaller. This is managed from Boston, which is our manufacturing headquarters there. Yeah, and it's good to have them. I think it's good to create additional value to the company, that not only to sell the products. So we're very proud about this operation, and we're creating very nice products for the entire world. What is our mission? Well, I think, as you see, there is not much brain here, right? So it's what any company would like to grow, to have satisfied customer, operational excellence, employee satisfaction. Any company would strive for this, I'm sure. But the way we look at this, I think, maybe a little bit different. We start for employee satisfaction. We believe that if we have a group of employees which are happy and satisfied to do the job, they will deliver the operational excellence. This will deliver the customer satisfaction, and finally we'll have the growth. So we try to start from the bottom and think from that perspective when we build our strategies. How big we are? We represent a little bit more than 1/3 of the entire corporation. So last year we're in 2.4 billion. This year we are heading to 2.6, 2.7, depending how this will go. And the entire company is growing very nicely. So it's a relevant part of the corporation. So what happens here really affects the rest of the globe. So that means 2 things. One is that we have a lot of, I would say, responsibility in our shoulders, and the other thing is that we continuously have visitors from Japan trying to understand how are we doing here. Last year, we managed to contribute heavily to the company. We grew 22% last year, and this year we are nicely growing as well. So doing well, I would say. And to finish with Olympus, I think that just to share a little bit about our social lean philosophy. I will talk later a little bit about something that happened in our company 3 years ago. We had a serious financial scandal in Japan, that was very tough for the company and for the employees. And probably because of that, we are even more than ever engaged in this philosophy, integrity, innovation, involvement. I mean, we obviously, integrity is something we never compromise as a company. Innovation is our DNA. I mean, we are in the market because we continuously innovate and because our technology is how it is. And involvement is because we want to be part of the community where we are, right? So at the end of the day, we want to give back to the society some of the things that society are giving to us. And this is really true. In our case, it's true in our case in our headquarters in Japan, and it's definitely true in our activities in America. All right, so let me go now through this part, and it will not be too long, but I was thinking what kind of stories I could tell you, right? And I've been successful in many parts of my life, in some others less successful, but as I mentioned before, to talk about successful stories is easy, but I don't think or at least in my case, the parts of my professional life where I've been more successful, I really did not learn much, and in other occasions where I had to go through very difficult times, I learned a lot. So I tried to position this from that perspective. So yes, I joined the company in 2001, and the revenue that year was 12 million euro, right? 12 million euro at that time. By 2007, the company was 200 million euro. So it was a significant growth in 6-7 years, right? So I really felt like I was the king of the mambo, right? So it was like, wow, I can do anything I want. This is easy. I'm so good, and yeah. Well, that was not true. What happened is that the economy in Spain at that time was booming. We had very good products, and everything helped, and I had a wonderful team to do a good job. But reality is that I felt at that time I was much better than I really was, right? So then someone invited me to go to, this is a Spanish saying, and it's completely true. Everything was going well until suddenly it began to rain, right? So in 2007, someone say, well, Nacho, why you don't go to Europe and do the consumer job? Say, well, why not? I mean, it's a next challenge. I've done that well, and this is going to be easy for me. And then I went in the end of 2007. You know what happened, right? So in 2007, I moved from Barcelona and my successful track behind me to Hamburg to manage the consumer business for EMEA region. Well, in 2008, Lehman Brothers fall, the crisis. I don't know how it was here, but there was horrible, really, really terrible. And the first business that suffered dramatically in our case was the consumer business. So I was sitting there in my office in Hamburg. I mean, looking month after month how my sales were decreasing, and I was really paralyzed. I think for a few weeks I was like, well, what is this? I mean, this is not. Nobody told me this, and what happened with my? I mean, I'm so good. This should work, right? So, but honestly, for weeks I was like really thinking, what the hell I can do to manage this? Well, finally we went through it, and how we went through it, I think that well, first of all, we had to accept the situation, right? And this started the series of learning from my side. First of all, we had to accept that this was the crisis was going to be there for long. It was not a 2-month crisis. I mean, it really was serious. Consumer market was very much affected, and well, we could not expect that the market was going to recover suddenly, and we had to do something. And it was not easy, because the first thing we had to do is to acknowledge that the business was going to be down. I mean, was going to decline, and that means that our structure was too big, and we had to take difficult decisions in terms of restructuring and letting people go, in order to manage our SG&A. But the other thing that happened, and it became a very nice experience for me, is to say, well, in the developed world, there is not much to do. I mean, in Germany, in France, in Italy, in Spain, in the UK, the business was crap. It's really, really tough. And so, well, what else we have? And I say, well, I think in our region, say we're responsible for EMEA. So yeah, I know, but I've never been there. I mean, I've never been in EMEA or in Africa or in Middle East, and there shouldn't be no business there. So maybe not business, but this is the only chance you have, my friend. So I started a trip a few weeks in the Middle East and Africa, developing partnerships, meeting dealers, and actually this became in 2009, 2010 became a relevant part of our business, because those areas were far less affected about the crisis or the economical crisis, and still they were growing, and still they were developing certain businesses. So it helps a lot, and it was a nice discovery that we had, that without the crisis probably would never have happened, because it was too far from the civilization. And from other point of view, I told you it was a fantastic time for me, because I could meet people from that regions, and I learned a lot from them, and yeah, found it really interesting at the end. So what happened was the end of this story, that 3 years later the company had half of the size. So it was good for my proud, right? So I learned as well that, well, maybe my success was not only due to me before, because this was not only due to me as well, right? So it turned me a little bit more humble, definitely. But the good thing is that the size of the company was definitely reduced. But we were more expanded internationally, so we covered better the region where we are, and we were profitable after 3 years of really struggling with that. So it's well, it started badly. It was a very tough time for me, but I really learned a lot through the process, and finally we managed and we keep the company afloat. This is one story. The other one is when I moved to the US. So I moved here in March, April 2011. I came first by myself. I was looking for a house and a school for my kids, everything else. So, and then in August, I went back to Barcelona. I picked up my family, and then we came to Pennsylvania, and we started living there. With it was a not easy decision to move to the States. I think it's really to the unknown, right? So and America, US is not really well known in the other side of the Atlantic. I really can tell you this: there is a lot of prejudgments and perceptions which are not right, and you don't realize it until you don't live here, and probably happen vice versa. But well, my wife and I decided that this would be good for us to be for a few years, or who knows, here. So we came here with a lot of motivation and being happy. Well, in October of 2001, Olympus in Tokyo, our colleagues in Tokyo, disclosed previous hiding of losses of more than 1.5 billion. It was a fraud. It was a very tough one. It almost bankrupted the company. We were that close to bankruptcy, or that close to be acquired in very bad conditions for anybody else, probably from a competitor. It was a tough time. It was October, so I mean, we were living in my house for the new house here for 2 months, and then my wife was looking at me and say, "So now what to do?" I remember I took a plane and I went to Japan and I say, "Guys, what I should do? I mean, I should prepare the luggage and come back to Europe, or well, this was very tough, and for all the employees was really difficult time, because we really didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, as I say, it was a point where we were very close to bankruptcy, and with equity ratio of at 3% at a point, so really bad, and unfortunately it was a lot of so the fraud, or the financial fraud, was just the tip of the iceberg. So what reality was is that the company had a very poor corporate governance, and this poor corporate governance now lead to a few number of individuals in our headquarters in Japan to take the wrong decisions for years. This was one of them, the most visible one, but there were many others. So a group of, obviously all the board of directors had to resign, and some of them are in jail, and well, many things happen, and the justice followed the course. But for us, we were left with a company with a good business, and that's what I have thought to save the company, is that our products are good and our products are demanded by the market. So we had something to offer, and a new group of directors that did a fantastic job in developing and really developing the right corporate governance for the company, involving the managers overseas in all these preparations. It was a very tough year, but 1 year after that, things started to be much better. 1.5 years after that, we were already back trading in Tokyo Stock Exchange in a normal conditions. And actually, now our financial situation is more solid than ever. But even more important than this, I would say that our corporate governance is probably top class in any place in the world. We, thanks to this, we have a saying in Spain: "What don't kill you make you stronger." Right? I think we left very strong out of this situation. But this was one of the talking again about learning, right? So what are the things I got from that is that, first of all, we were able to recognize our friends, right? So in terms of customers or vendors, I remember a lot of conversations with both customers and vendors. Some of them supportive, some of them more cautious, but we were able to recognize with whom you can count on these things. The other thing we had to work is that, well, we had to accept that our processes in the company were not right, and that's what led to the fraud to happen. So we had to change all of this, and again, it makes you more humble that you cannot stop watching out certain things, otherwise it can get wrong. So it was interesting, very interesting experience, very tough, really tough for all of our employees in America and all over the world. I mean, in Japan it was even tougher, definitely. But finally now we are in an excellent position to overcome whatever the challenges are. So again, a tough experience that became a good learning. And the final one is still going on. We have a U.S. healthcare reform, as you know, going on since 2010. The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act passed in 2010, and we're in the middle of this. 75% of our business is medical business, so we are very, very much exposed to anything that happens in the healthcare. And I know some of you here in the healthcare. This is definitely been an interesting, challenging experience, because part of the problem is not only the reform itself or the final goal of the reform. Part of the problem is that in reality nobody knows exactly what is going to happen, and this is creating huge uncertainty in the market. And for the hospital administrators, medtech companies, insurance companies, I think is a real challenge to how to position yourself in whatever we expect to come, right? So I first of all, I believe, this is my personal feeling, healthcare reform is here to stay. And I say this because I heard some comments about, well, with a new administration this can be considered. I don't think so. I think healthcare reform is going to stay here, and it's going to stay because US requires a healthcare reform. I don't know in which way, but how to do it, but definitely the healthcare per head in America, in US, is double that the healthcare per head in any other civilized country in the world. So $9,000 here against $4,500 in Germany, $4,000 in Spain, which are places with a great healthcare as well, right? So this is unsustainable. This is unsustainable for the GDP of the US. So it's going to be here to stay. The question is, how can we navigate to this? Well, the first gift we got is the sales excise tax, and that was great, right? 2.3% of our sales, volatile. It was fun to go to Japan and say, you know what? Few dozens of millions are going to disappear from the top line and from the bottom line directly. So it was a tough thing, but obviously I understand. Obviously, I don't like the sales excise tax from a corporate perspective, but still, I believe that the aim of the healthcare reform, it makes sense. So to look for better medical outcomes, better patient satisfaction, and better cost. Well, it's something that sounds very great to me. Fantastic. The question is how this is going to be done, and I think this is really the key point, and this is which is creating a lot of a struggle for many people. I met often hospital administrators and IDN people, and it's tough for them to make a budget for next year, because it's not easy to identify how is going to be the source of revenue, how this is going to change, what kind of penalties they might get. So it's creating uncertainty for healthcare providers. So what to do in this occasion? Well, and that's what we are doing. And I don't know how this will finish, but we know many of our competitors are cutting expenses and really laying off people, and then really becoming very, very cautious. We did exactly the opposite. I mean, we are more aggressive than ever. So we see this as an opportunity. Our product portfolio is well positioned to help with the triple aim because all our devices are focused on minimal invasive treatments, which is in essence good for the triple aim from any angle. But we keep investing as much as we can in R&D, and we are hiring massively people in the United States, as some of you know here, right? So because we see this as an opportunity, we see this as a great opportunity for us to keep growing and probably to take advantage of other players which are kind of being more cautious in this time. So I don't know if this will work or not, but I hope it will, and I definitely believe it's the right thing to do. That's what we are doing. So and with this I will finish, but what are the if I can summarize in four things, in four ways, what I learned through all this experience, and probably many others, right? So the first thing is hope is not a strategy. And believe me, I've seen this many times in my life. I mean, people just complaining about the environment and hoping the environment will change while your business is dying. And the environment is very cruel, right? So it doesn't change. So hope is not a strategy. You have to find your way. I mean, when I was sitting in my office in Hamburg for weeks, just waiting for the miracle was not going to come. So you have to stand up and find your way and develop your way in one way or another. And you have to take risk. But what is not valid is simply to hope, because this is not going to solve your problems. As the other big learning to me through that occasions is that the Chinese word for a crisis is actually two words: it's danger and opportunity. And the way they see it is that in any crisis situation there is opportunity for you, and you have to find this out, right? So in the case of Europe, was definitely, when I was in Europe, was definitely to look for other markets and look for other alternatives. There is always things you can do. And again, you cannot be just complaining about the environment. You have to find your opportunities through it. The healthcare reform is another clear example for us that we believe this is an opportunity, but we have to build the opportunity as well. That's a classic, but I think it's always needs to be mentioned, right? You can never do things alone. You need people, you need good people, and probably in difficult times you need people more than ever, because these are the ones that are going to help you to go through it. And anybody has enough power or enough intelligence or enough abilities to do by themselves. So I think when things are difficult is when you have to pay more attention to take care of your people. And be sure that you have the right team with you and care of them. You have to really maintain them highly motivated and show them that the entire team is responsible for the success and for navigate through whatever the situation is. And finally, consistency and persistence. I think this is another thing that is relevant, because none of these things happens overnight. I mean, when you develop a strategy, and it's easy to tell about how it was 5 years after, but in the moment when you are developing your plans and you are developing your strategy, your tactics, you don't know how it's going to be. You have to believe in you. You have to believe in what you are developing, and you have to be consistent. If you really think you're doing the right thing, maybe the results will take a little bit to come, but you have to keep doing. If you change direction every second day, this is definitely not going to be good. And with this, just thank you very much. I'll leave you my email in case you want to get in touch for anything. And again, I appreciate you having me here for the lunch. And any question or any comment, really welcome. Thank you.